Chosen one, what if I told you that God has been trying to get your attention for months? You've noticed the subtle signs, the restless nights, the moments that felt like more than coincidence. But here's the truth. This message is not just another whisper. It's a warning. It's the final call before a door closes, a moment you cannot afford to overlook. You might feel overwhelmed or skeptical, but that hesitation is exactly what keeps so many chosen ones from hearing the truth. God doesn't repeat himself without purpose. When he warns you, he expects you to listen. This is your final message. If you ignore it, you'll have no one to blame but yourself. So stay with me, because what we're about to uncover will show you why this warning is so critical and what's at stake if you fail to act. The sign that God is speaking to you right now. There's a moment in everyone's spiritual journey where they start to sense something different. It's subtle at first, just a feeling in your gut that something is shifting, that the world around you is no longer the same. You find yourself drawn to moments of quiet, moments where the noise of life fades, and you can finally hear what's been whispering to you all along. That uneasiness, that pull towards something greater, it isn't random. It's God speaking to you. You might not even realize it, but those dreams you keep having, the people who seem to fade out of your life, and the new opportunities that come out of nowhere, they all mean something. These are signs, carefully placed in your path, urging you to stop and pay attention. The voice of God doesn't always come as a thunderclap. Sometimes it's a gentle yet persistent nudge that tells you, this is where you need to go. But recognizing these signs isn't always easy. We live in a world filled with distractions and doubts, and it's easy to brush these feelings off as coincidence. You might find yourself second-guessing, wondering if it's really God or just your imagination. Yet, the more you try to ignore it, the louder it becomes. It's not just the dreams or the moments of sudden clarity. It's the way certain doors close, forcing you to consider a new path. It's the unexpected conversations with strangers that seem to carry a message directly to your heart. Maybe you've noticed a particular verse of scripture appearing repeatedly, or perhaps you've heard a message that seems to answer a question you haven't even spoken out loud. These are not coincidences. These are divine markers, pointing you toward a new direction. They're not random, they're deliberate. When you think about the way God communicates, you may remember the story of Elijah on Mount Horeb. Elijah expected God to show up in the mighty wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but God came to him in a gentle whisper. That's often how God works. He's not always going to shout. He's going to place signs around you that require you to slow down and listen, but that doesn't make the message any less clear. In fact, the more subtle the sign, the more powerful its impact when you finally recognize it. These moments, when you're reminded of a scripture passage at just the right time, when you feel an undeniable peace after a difficult decision, when someone's words touch a part of you that you've been hiding, these moments are proof that God is speaking to you now. Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now. As you begin to acknowledge these signs, something inside you shifts. The tension you've been feeling starts to make sense. You see that what you once thought was confusion was actually preparation. The uneasiness in your heart was God stretching you, calling you towards something greater. It's as if a fog is lifting, and the path you're meant to walk becomes clearer with every step. The relationships that ended, the opportunities that didn't work out, the struggles that push you to the edge, all of these experiences start to align, revealing a pattern. God has been arranging everything for this moment. You might even find that as you notice these signs, your confidence grows. You no longer feel like you're wandering aimlessly. You're walking in alignment with a divine purpose. This isn't just about noticing patterns. It's about understanding that there's a higher force orchestrating your journey. The signs you see are not isolated incidents. They're pieces of a larger puzzle that God has been putting together behind the scenes. He's been moving the right people into your life, removing those who hold you back, and opening doors that you didn't even know were there. What once felt like roadblocks now feel like redirections. What once felt like loss now feels like preparation. This is divine alignment at its core. God making a way where there seemed to be no way, guiding you toward a future that He's already prepared for you. As you start to see the bigger picture, you realize that these signs are more than just encouragement. They're evidence that you're on the right path. In this moment of clarity, you may find yourself hesitant. Maybe you feel unworthy of such divine attention, Or maybe you're afraid of what comes next. It's normal to feel uncertain when you realize how big the stakes are. But this is not the time to shrink back. This is a time to lean in. Accepting that God is speaking to you means embracing the responsibility that comes with it. It means acknowledging that you are chosen, that you have a purpose that can't be ignored. It means stepping into the light and trusting that what lies ahead is better than what you're leaving behind. True alignment requires not just seeing the signs, but believing in them. It requires you to take that first step, even if you don't know exactly where it will lead. Now that you understand what's happening, it's time to take action. The signs have been there all along. You felt the pull, seen the shifts, and experienced the clarity. The next step is to trust what you've been shown. It's a move forward with faith, knowing that God's guidance is always perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to take the next step. Release the fear, the doubt, and the hesitation. Lean into the truth that you've been chosen for a reason, and let that truth guide you. Trust the process. Trust the timing. And trust that the God who started this work and you will see it through to completion. Comment signs if you've been noticing God's voice in unexpected places. Next, we'll explore why so many chosen ones fail to respond when God speaks. Why many chosen ones ignore divine messages. There's no question that life can be overwhelming. For many chosen ones, it's not a lack of faith that makes them miss God's messages. It's the sheer volume of everything else happening. Between work demands, family responsibilities, and the endless stream of information from social media and the news, finding a quiet moment can feel impossible. In that noise, the subtle signs God sends can go unnoticed. You might catch a glimpse of something meaningful, an unexpected opportunity, a gentle nudge in prayer. But then the phone rings, the emails pile up, and just like that, the message is drowned out. It's not that you don't want to hear him. It's that you've forgotten what stillness feels like. Doubt is another reason chosen ones often ignore these divine messages. Maybe you've had those fleeting moments of clarity when it felt like God was trying to get your attention, but then the questions creep in. What if it's all in my head? What if I'm making a mistake? Those doubts can become so loud that they overshadow the original sign. Comment unstoppable if you've ever turned betrayal into strength. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community. A private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join the Prop Hair membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. You forgave without losing memory. One of the hardest things you've ever done is forgive those who hurt you. You spent so many nights replaying the moments of betrayal, feeling the sting of their actions over and over. They may never have apologized, may never have acknowledged the pain they caused, yet somehow you found the strength to forgive. And that's where your journey takes on a power they never anticipated. You forgave without losing your memory. You didn't forget what they did, and you didn't excuse it. Instead, you made a choice. You released their hold on you. You stopped letting the past dictate your future. And now, when you look at your scars, they don't carry the weight of shame or regret. They carry strength. They remind you the truth you had to learn the hard way. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about setting yourself free. When the wounds were fresh, you might have thought forgiving would mean erasing everything, pretending it never happened. But you've realized that true forgiveness isn't about wiping your mind clean. It's about accepting what was done, learning the lessons, and refusing to let those moments define you. You still remember the words they used, the decisions they made, and the way it felt to be left in the dark. Yet now, those memories no longer haunt you. They guide you. Each one teaches you where to place your boundaries, how to protect your peace, and who truly deserves a seat at your table. You don't let those memories make you bitter. Instead, you let them make you wiser. And that wisdom is what sets you apart. It's like when Nehemiah rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. He wasn't just putting stones together. He was restoring what had been broken. He wasn't building out of anger or vengeance. He was building out of purpose. Each stone placed represented a new strength, a renewed commitment to what mattered most. In the same way, you rebuilt your own foundation. The walls of your soul are now stronger, not to keep people out, but to ensure that only what aligns with your highest good can come in. This is what forgiveness without forgetting looks like. It's not about putting up barriers. It's about creating sacred boundaries that protect the light within you. And every time you walk past those walls, you know that what lies inside is worth guarding. The transformation is undeniable. You've gone from someone who carried the weight of pain to someone who uses that weight to grow stronger. You don't hide your scars because they're not a source of embarrassment. They're proof of your journey. When you speak your truth now, there's a clarity and confidence that others can't ignore. They see it in the way you carry yourself, in the choices you make, in the calm assurance that radiates from you. You didn't lose your memory when you forgave. Instead, you let those memories shape your wisdom. You allowed them to inform your steps, to sharpen your discernment, to make you unshakable. What's even more profound is how your forgiveness has reshaped your relationship with the past. Instead of running from it, you've faced it. Instead of letting it define you, you've let it refine you. The people who hurt you didn't break you. They became catalysts for your growth. By forgiving, you took away their power. By remembering, you claimed your own. Now, when you think of them, it's not with resentment, but with gratitude for the lessons, for the clarity, for the strength you never knew you had. You've turned what once felt like a curse into a blessing. And that's something no one can take from you. So, what do you do now with this wisdom, this newfound strength? You use it to move forward boldly. You use it to build relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. You use it to make decisions that honor your boundaries and protect your peace. You don't live in fear of being hurt again because you know that no matter what happens, you have the tools to heal, to forgive, and to rise. The memory of what you endured isn't chain. It's a guide. It's what keeps you from making the same mistakes, what helps you see the red flags before they become scars. And with that knowledge, you walk into every new chapter of your life with a quiet confidence that can't be shaken. Ultimately, your forgiveness without forgetting has turned you into a force to be reckoned with. It has allowed you to navigate the world with clarity, to move through challenges with grace, and stand firm in your truth no matter what comes your way. The people who once underestimated you, who thought their actions would break you, now watch from the sidelines, speechless. They see someone who didn't just survive, they see someone who thrives. And while they may not understand how you did it, you know that by forgiving without losing your memory, you unlocked a strength that nothing and no one can take away. They didn't believe in you, now they watch in silence. There was a time when they called you delusional. Your dreams seemed too big, too bold, too out of reach. They scoffed at your efforts, whispered behind your back, and doubted every step you took. They looked at your determination and saw it as a flaw, a sign that you didn't understand how the real world works. But you weren't chasing empty ambitions. You were following a divine blueprint, one that they couldn't see. You didn't need their approval. You didn't need their applause. Instead, you kept walking, kept believing, kept building. And now, as you stand in the light of your own success, they're left watching in silence. They can't explain how you got here. They can't deny what you've achieved. All they can do is sit back and see that you never needed their validation to become everything you were meant to be. The journey wasn't easy. Along the way, you questioned yourself. Their voices echoed in your mind during the quiet moments, making you wonder if they were right. Every setback felt heavier because you knew they were waiting for you to fail. But instead of giving in, you let their doubts fuel your resolve. You dug deeper, pushed harder, and clung to your faith even when the odds were stacked against you. Like Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem's walls under constant opposition, you worked with one hand on your vision and the other ready to defend it. Each obstacle was another stone placed in your foundation, another step closer to proving, not to them, but to yourself, that you were always capable of more. The turning point came when you realized that their disbelief had nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own fears. Just as the Pharisees doubted Jesus because they couldn't comprehend his divine authority, these people doubted you because they couldn't see beyond their own limitations. But like Jesus, you didn't argue. You didn't try to convince them. You simply continued your work. John 10 verses 37 to 38 says, "If I am not doing the works of my Father, then do not believe me. But if I do them, even though you do not believe me, believe the works." Your actions spoke louder than their criticisms. The fruits of your labor became your testimony. And when your breakthrough finally arrived, it was undeniable just as undeniable as the truth you always carried. What's remarkable now is a shift in their behavior. They used to talk so loudly about what you couldn't do, but now their silence says everything. They don't have words for how you turn your pain into purpose, your setbacks into stepping stones. You can feel their gaze, their quiet acknowledgement, even if they never admit it. Your life is a living example of transformation. You went from being the one they doubted to being the one they can't ignore. And you didn't get here by shouting back at them. You got here by staying focused, by trusting the process, by letting your results speak for themselves. You started to notice that even those who doubted you the most are now trying to draw closer. They want to understand your methods, your mindset, your secrets. They might not say it out loud, but their actions reveal their curiosity. They once labeled your vision as impossible, and now they see it as inspiration. You become a quiet leader, someone who doesn't need to demand attention, because your success is magnetic. Others are drawn to you, not because you sought their approval, but because your journey has proven that faith, determination, and alignment with a higher purpose can overcome any opposition. This realization brings a sense of peace. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You've outgrown the need to hear them say, "You were right." Their opinions no longer carry weight, because you understand that their disbelief was never about you. It was about their own fear of stepping into the unknown, their resistance to change, their unwillingness to believe in something bigger than themselves. And now, as they watch you rise, you've gained something far more valuable than their validation. You've gained clarity, confidence, and a deep understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. You stand as living proof that faith and perseverance can rewrite any story. You didn't need to argue or defend yourself. You simply needed to keep going, to stay aligned with your purpose, to trust that the path laid before you was the right one. And now, the silence of those who doubted you is the loudest testimony of all. Their whispers have faded, replaced by their quiet admiration. Even if they never express it, you become the example of what's possible, a reminder that the people who doubt you can't define you. Only you can do that. So here you are, stronger, wiser, and more certain of your calling than ever. You've seen how doubt can fuel determination, how rejection can guide redirection, and how faith can transform impossibility into reality. You don't need their applause. You don't need their words. All you need is the understanding that every step you took was worth it, and that their silence now speaks louder than anything they ever said. This is your victory. This is your story. And this is your undeniable truth. Your silence became your loudest flex. In a world that thrives on noise, where everyone seems to be shouting to be heard, you found the power in staying silent. At first, it felt unnatural. You wonder if people would take advantage of your quiet nature, if your voice would be drowned out in the chaos. You may have doubted yourself. After all, isn't it the loudest voice that commands attention? But as time went on, you realized that your silence wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. While others scrambled to prove their worth, you let your actions do the talking. When they gossiped and doubted you, you stayed focused. When they dismissed you, you doubled down on your work. You didn't react, you built. And in doing so, you created a presence that no words could match. Your silence wasn't empty. It was full of intention, full of strength, full of the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are without needing to announce it. The journey to this kind of quiet strength wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when you felt overlooked, moments when the noise of others' opinions threatened to drown out your inner voice. But those moments became your training ground. They taught you how to tune out the distractions and stay centered. The more others tried to draw you into their chaos, the more you learned to rely on the stillness within. It wasn't easy. Sometimes you felt the urge to speak up, to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But deep down, you knew that wasn't your path. Like a seasoned warrior who chooses when and where to strike, you learned that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Your silence became your shield, your strategy, your secret weapon. There's a story in the Gospels that illustrates this perfectly. When Jesus stood before his accusers, faced with false charges and mockery, he remained silent. He didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't try to win them over with words. Why? Because he already knew the outcome. He knew his purpose, and he knew that his silence would speak louder than any defense he could offer. That same quiet certainty now resides in you. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to those who don't understand. Instead, you let your life, the choices you make, the energy you carry, the results you achieve, be the only testimony you need. And just like with Jesus, your silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've chosen to let your actions speak for you. As time passed, you began to see the signs of your transformation. People who once overlooked you started to pay attention, not because you demanded it, but because they couldn't ignore the shifts happening in your life. You began to notice that your silence carried weight. It wasn't just the absence of words, it was the presence of certainty. Your stillness made people curious. Why wasn't this person defending themselves? Why weren't they scrambling to prove their worth? That curiosity led them to watch more closely. They saw how you moved through the world with grace and determination, how you achieved success without fanfare, how you carried yourself with a calm assurance that drew others in. What once looked like passivity was now recognized as power. This quiet power didn't just affect how others saw you. It transformed your entire journey. With each step you took in silence, you became more aligned with your true self. You stopped needing external validation and started trusting your own instincts. The less you spoke, the more you heard your inner voice. And that inner voice guided you toward opportunities, connections, and decisions that felt right, not just in the moment, but in the grander scheme of your life. Your silence became a signal, not to the world, but to yourself, that you were finally in tune with your divine purpose. The peace that came from knowing you didn't have to explain yourself was like a gentle current, carrying you forward without resistance. This journey wasn't just about you. Your silence became a light for others who were tired of the noise. People began to look to you as an example of how to live authentically. They saw that you didn't need to shout your worth, that you didn't have to prove your value to anyone. Your presence alone was enough. And in a world that often values volume over substance, your quiet strength stood out. It made others stop and think, made them question their own need for constant validation. By simply living your truth, you gave others permission to do the same. Your silence wasn't just about your personal growth. It was about inspiring those around you to find their own inner stillness. Now, as you stand in this place of quiet power, you see how every challenge, every doubt, every moment of feeling overlooked was preparing you. What once felt like a struggle is now your foundation. What once seemed like rejection is now your greatest strength. Your silence, once mistaken for weakness, is now recognized for what it truly is, a declaration of your authenticity, your self-assurance, your trust in the divine plan for your life. And as you move forward, you carry that quiet power with you, knowing that it's not about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the most certain. This is your time to own your silence, to let it be your loudest flex. The world will always have noise, but you've discovered that you don't need to compete with it. You've found a way to rise above it, to let your presence speak for itself. And in doing so, you become a beacon of strength, wisdom, and grace. Let this be the reminder you need. You don't have to say a word to make an impact. Your silence, filled with purpose and power, is more than enough. From misfit to movement, you were never meant to fit into their mold. From the very beginning, it was clear that you weren't like everyone else. Maybe it was the way you saw things, the questions you asked, or the dreams you had that set you apart. They tried to shape you, to make you conform, but no matter how hard they pushed, you couldn't ignore the feeling that you were meant for more. While others settled into familiar routines and predictable patterns, you found yourself restless, yearning for something greater. That restlessness wasn't a flaw. It was a signal. The things they said about you, the labels, the criticisms, weren't reflections of your shortcomings. They were the symptoms of a world that couldn't understand your uniqueness. And though it may have felt isolating, it was in that isolation that your true self began to emerge. You weren't failing to fit in. You were discovering that you were never meant to blend in. For a long time, that realization felt more like a burden than a gift. You questioned yourself, wondered why you couldn't be content with what seemed to satisfy everyone else. The pressure to conform weighed heavily on you, leaving you feeling like an outcast. Moments of rejection, doubt, and loneliness started piling up. It wasn't easy to see past them, but those experiences were shaping you in ways you didn't fully grasp at the time. The challenges you faced weren't just obstacles. They were tests of your character and resilience. You were being refined, not punished. What looked like setbacks were actually steps in a process of transformation. It was through that process, through those quiet, painful moments, that you learned to stand on your own. You began to see that your difference wasn't a weakness. It was a foundation of your strength. That's when the turning point came. You realized that you didn't need their approval to find your purpose. Just as David stood apart from his brothers, overlooked until the moment he was chosen, you began to see that being set apart was a rejection. It was preparation. In Acts 13, verse 22, it says that God sought out David, a man after his own heart. Because David would do everything God asked of him, you started to understand that your journey wasn't about pleasing people or meeting their expectations. It was about aligning yourself with a higher purpose. That alignment was what gave you clarity and confidence. As you stopped trying to fit into their mold, you found freedom. And with that freedom came the realization that you didn't need to chase validation from others. Instead, you started living in a way that brought out your truest self, and that truth spoke louder than any approval ever could. The transformation wasn't sudden, but it was undeniable. At first, the changes were small, subtle shifts in how you carried yourself, the boundaries you set, the energy you brought into each day. Then the shifts grew more apparent. Opportunities started to appear. The right people entered your life, and you found yourself stepping into spaces you never thought possible. It was as if the universe was responding to the person you were becoming. You weren't waiting for permission anymore. You weren't shrinking to fit their expectations. Instead, you were expanding, stepping fully into the person you were always meant to be. The weight of try to conform lifted, replaced by the strength of knowing you were exactly where you needed to be. The world around you began to reflect a change inside of you. Doors opened, paths cleared, and the momentum built. What once felt like an uphill battle was now a steady ascent. It wasn't just external circumstances that changed. Something deeper was happening. There was a divine alignment taking place, a sense that higher forces were guiding your steps. The synchronicities, the seemingly random connections, the moments of perfect timing, they weren't coincidences. They were signs that you were on the right path. Those signs gave you the courage to keep going, even when the road was uncertain. You started to see how everything you had been through was setting you up for something greater. The trials weren't meant to break you. They were meant to build you. As your inner strength grew, so did your impact. People noticed the transformation, not just external success, but the energy you carried. They saw the peace, the confidence, the unwavering sense of purpose. And whether they admitted it or not, they were inspired. Your journey wasn't just about you anymore. It was about something bigger. Now, you stand as proof that it's not just okay to be different, it's powerful. By embracing who you truly are, you've created a ripple effect that extends far beyond yourself. You've gone from feeling like a misfit to being the spark that ignites change. And as you continue to rise, you lift others with you. You've shown that being set apart isn't a curse. It's a calling. It's an opportunity to lead, to inspire, to create a movement that empowers others to embrace their own uniqueness. In the end, your journey has become a testament to the truth that the very thing they try to make you suppress is the very thing that makes you extraordinary. At a certain point, the shift became undeniable. You weren't just finding your way, you were blazing a trail. People who once doubted you began to look to you for guidance. Those who had written you off started to take notice. Without realizing it, you had become a model for what was possible. Your authenticity, your determination, your refusal to give up, those qualities spoke louder than any words. You weren't just leading yourself. You were showing others that they could do it too. What they called failure was simply preparation. What they called delusion was divine strategy. And now, without forcing it, without demanding it, you've won. Not by tearing them down, but by lifting yourself up. The room shifts when you walk in because you become a force of nature, a living testament to the power of faith, patience, and transformation. So as you continue on this journey, remember, forgive, elevate, repeat. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen," to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. 4 full prophetic revelations daily. Join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. You've already won. Keep shining.